Welcome to Team Building Cultures, the podcast designed to deliver tools and tips for improving team communication, collaboration, and fostering a culture where teams thrive. Now, here's your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants.
Hello, listeners, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Team Building Cultures. I am your host, Beverly Hathorn, owner of Strategic HR Consultants. Today, I'll be speaking with a winning coach, someone who's going to really help us gather some information about how to develop a strong team. So, we're speaking with Mr. Geoff Carlston today, and Geoff is the founder of Epic Journey Leadership, and it's dedicated to guiding individuals and organizations away from isolation and towards community, something I think we all could use some help with. He has coached several CEOs, professional athletes, small business owners, and leaders of all walks of life on how to shift from common culture to elite connection. Yeah, sounds exciting. He has been a Division One coach for 20 years. Very long time, Geoff has been working with people and helping them come to their best selves. He was a Peace Corps volunteer, very honorable. Thank you for that service in Central America, and has traveled to 45 countries. He's the father of 3 adventurous boys, and Geoff is going to talk to us today about transforming isolation through authenticity. Geoff, thank you so much for joining me today. It's going to be a great discussion.
I appreciate that, man. You make me sound really cool. Thank you for that.
You know, that's nice to see that you're so humble, because from what I've learned about you and what I've read about you and what I've seen, you are really cool.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. So just tell us, what do you mean about transforming isolation through authenticity? What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, no, first of all, thanks for let me be here. It's awesome. I think one of the things as a coach, and now that I have children as well, I think one of the truisms is, especially with men, but I think it's across all ages and genders and everything is I think the sad thing is once people can actually talk to other people about what's going on, all of a sudden you realize the isolation dissipates, but so often we don't get that chance. We're not providing opportunities. As individuals, we feel nervous. We feel like we're the only ones going through whatever we're going through. And the irony is everyone's going through it. And so for me, one of my passions is, and I do this with our volleyball teams, I do this with, the CEOs and people I work with, do my best to do it with my children. And then myself is to speak, and be vulnerable. And when you one of the things I've learned is a strength of mine is, I've been through some stuff, and I talk about it. I've lost a parent. I've been let go from a job I loved one time only. Thank for that. Thankfully it's only been one time, but speaking about that, especially with other men, allows people to open up themselves. And once people open up and you create a space, through trust, the isolation slowly goes away. And it's incredible to see a group of people that are pretty, guards up, once they realize that, wow, I'm not the only one struggling with a relationship. I'm not the only one who feels, who goes dark and gets triggered I'm not the only one. That to me, over the last couple of years working through Epic Journey Leadership and talking to men and women, young people, is incredibly transformative. So that's what I mean by the authenticity, is just being real and speaking like what's going on with yourself at any given day, or talking about, past pains, and, changing the story, right? It's ultimately, we have the story that we have ourselves. I like to talk about that, a lot of times our stories, our negative stories and our pains are driving a car 100 miles down the road in LA in traffic, and we think we're driving, but we're not. And so one of the keys is to not try to get rid of those stories, but to put them in the back seat, buckle them in, embrace them, and start speaking a little bit of of a news story, as opposed to trying to get rid of it, just owning it, and just changing the narrative. So one of the things I love to do is get people either one-on-one or in groups, and let them start talking about real stuff, and through that the isolation disappears.
Interesting, because that's almost contrary to how some of us were brought up through life as youngsters. We were taught to keep home at home, and don't put your business out, and keep your problems to yourself, and we were taught the exact opposite. However, in today's world, things like transparency and being authentic, like you just spoke, has really become very popular. And I think as a culture, we're just only learning how valuable that actually is, because you have everyone from actors, well, I won't say politicians, but you have everyone from actors to business owners to really famous people who talk about their struggles with maybe drug use or infidelity, or all these serious things that have gone on in their lives. They just open up and be transparent about those, and now we're realizing how much that helps other people. Like you just mentioned,
Absolutely.
how much other people can say, hey, well, he went through that and look where he ended up. He made it. And so yeah, just kind of own who you are, and just as you said, put it on the back seat. Don't let it guard your life, or don't let it prevent you from moving forward. But just understand that's just a part of your story. That's not necessarily your whole entire story. So
Right. And I think, it's interesting working with CEOs and head coaches, and men and women who are, have been very successful, right? And it's almost that as you get more and more up that ladder, you get lonelier, right? There's less people really to be able to talk about this, to talk about the struggles of, like, for example, CEOs who's responsible for, you know, maybe tens or hundreds of people's lives, and not to mention their own personal lives, trying to take care of their families. And there's a mistrust, right? Of, do I tell is there another CEO I can talk to that's not going to use this against me, for example, or and necessarily don't necessarily want to bring this stuff home all the time, because you want to try to have it. You want to integrate. We like to talk a lot about integrating our life instead of life balance, because life balance is I work and then I get away for a week and I come back to work. Where how can we integrate our family and the things that we're passionate about into what we do, and so that becomes a blend of who we are, right? And a lot of times I think we focus so much on, we're identified as what we do, right? Like, for example, I mean, with my college team, we really work on, we're more than just being a college athlete, right? I mean, because that can be taken away. You can get injured, and if your identity is put into things that we don't have control over, like being a great athlete or being a starter or being an A student, being quote unquote successful, and all of these terms that we tend to hang our hat on as our identities. I think it's really, really important that we think deeply and be intentional about not forming our identity with things that are external, right? That can be taken away with an injury, that can be taken away by, a financial downturn. And so I think there's a fear, right? And one of the things, one of our anchors are that we talk about is, fear is greater than love. I mean, love is greater than fear. A lot of times it's the other way around, where we act and behave in fearful ways of what if this person doesn't respond, what if, and so when we come to a path to be able to say, okay, right now, am I acting out of love right now, or am I acting out of fear? And for the most part, I think human nature is, we don't want to be vulnerable, right? We don't want to be even honest or authentic, and we don't want to talk about our dark places. We just want to, and you look at social media, right? That's all social media is for the most part, is, why is everyone else so happy? And I'm not, right? And whether you're a 12-year-old, I've 10, 8, and 6-year-olds, or you're a college kid, or you're a CEO, or you're a mother, or you're a father, certainly the internet, the social media is not helping this. And so I think it's
Mm-mm.
really, really important. Um, this is really my focus of Epic Journey Leadership, and what I try to do is with coaching individuals and my teams and organizations is, the best leaders and the best leaders in the world are ones who are willing to share their stories in real ways. Because if you don't share your story, if you're not authentic about your stories, then you're not going to get authenticity from your workers, from your players, even from your people that are closest to you sometimes. So um, it is the truism, I think, out there. The more we can be real and authentic as a human, the better leader we're going to be, the better father we're going to be, the better mother, the better coach, whatever. It's just hard to do. It's like you said, it's not necessarily how we're programmed. Most of our models, our fathers and our mothers and our families were probably a little not this way. And so, but that's the cool thing, right? That's the transformative period we're in right now, is let's fix that. So working with CEOs has been really cool this is like a foreign language, like to talk about, like create value. But when you start talking about return on an investment, like if you want to retain workers, create value. If you want to retain and not lose your best people, show them who you really are, right? I mean, it's financially the best way to go too. So if you want to think about bottom line and ROI, yeah, certainly I think there's some incredible financial positives to it, but more than that, it's just, what legacy do you want to leave as a human, right? And so we might as well be authentic as opposed to trying to, hold our cards close to our vest all the time.
Yes, I'm in complete alignment with you on that. I agree. And especially, when we're talking about CEOs, you're viewed as I don't know, there was a TV show once called The Man in the High Castle. You're viewed as something like way up and out of reach and out of touch. And if you will, bring yourself to a point where you can build real, authentic, and transparent relationships, I think you'll find that people will, once they develop those relationships with you, now it's not just an employee-employer relationship. It becomes more of a personal relationship. And we all know that it's harder to leave, more difficult to leave where you have those relationships built than it is just an empty job, And like you said, with the titles, that title can be taken away or changed or anything. It's just a title. It's not really who you exactly are. So, for leadership, I would say, work on building real, authentic, one-to-one relationships with your teams and the individuals who report to you. Doesn't have to be 100% personal, but just build some sort of relationship where you kind of get to know each other, a little bit. And then you don't seem like such an out of reach entity to me as someone reporting to you.
Right, right. And I think it's become so sterile. I mean, even HR and human resources, like think about resources. What resources are we tapping into, right? Are we
Mm-hmm.
tapping into resources of the heart, or are we tapping into resources? It's become, there's a fear of, you know, I don't want to say the wrong things. I want to show myself as weak. There's so many things that are tied in with this that, as whether you're heading up an HR firm or an HR, part of an head leader of an HR in an organization, or you're a leader, CEO, or a C-suite, or a head coach, or I mean, a mom or dad, right, or a principal, like doesn't matter. Like all of this is, we become so sterile, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think the way to change that is to add light, and you add light through being vulnerable and creating shared experiences. So if you're not doing stuff outside of the office as a company or organization, you're missing out. Like you have to create shared experiences outside of work if you want it to be more, and the return on little things like that, whether it's a company picnic, it's something fun that can be shared. I mean, that goes a long ways, especially now. People are struggling. They don't want to work. They want to, you know, the great resignation, all of that. That's not about money. That's about connection. right?
Mm-hmm.
And what an awesome time, whether you're in the HR field like you are, or a leader wherever that might be. This is the time to separate yourself, right? Post COVID, um, how do we bring some heart and some love and some connection into what we're doing? If you do that, you are, because not many people do it, right? And it's like we tell our players, write a personal note instead of sending an email, because it just stand out. You're just different. So I do think and want to encourage, and this is what I do with any of my leaders I work with one-on-one or organizations, is get weird, do something different, bring some heart and some fun and some connectivity into it. And but you can't just do it and bring some else. You gotta show it yourself first, right? And so it's not just a token optics. It starts with our leaders, and it starts with our HR firms and those things, to be able to bring some heart into this, because let's be honest, there's a lack of that, and I think that connection is really the secret sauce here, and it starts with individuals, and specifically it starts with the leaders of whatever organization we're navigating with.
So, I'm wondering, with some of your leaders, particularly the CEOs, I guess I'm really very interested in, but with some of your leaders, when you bring this to them, hey, bring some heart, bring some connection, open up, build relationships. What are some of the obstacles that you run across when you're putting forth this, what are some of the things they say? No, I can't do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it feels like, for a lot of them initially, it's like I'm speaking Portuguese. I mean, it's a different language, right? Because it goes, like, keep in mind here, everyone, they've already been successful. Like, well, if it ain't broke, and it's like, well, you know what? It is broke, right? When you start thinking about your physical being, your spiritual, your connectivity, your legacy, if it's about money, sure, maybe it's not broke. But if it's more than money, if it's connectivity and leaving your mark and impacting people, it's broke, right? And so, first we have to just get on the same page, and sometimes it depends on the CEO. Sometimes you have to really talk about ROI and retention, and initially get them like, oh, okay, I'm listening, but ultimately that's just a step to getting into some self-reflection, self-examination, but it really is about building trust. It takes time. I share my story, and encourage them to share their story. Once it gets down there, you start going, okay, so where do you think this might be coming from? Like, this fear of whatever it might be. And we all have different stuff. We all have different caves. We all have our stuff that we're navigating. But I think the biggest part is helping, that man or woman understand that this is power, right? This isn't weakness. It's a total shift for a lot of people. But once we go down that path, and the doors open, that's when things get really fun, right? That's when you can go deeper, and you start really feeling things going. But to get to that space, really just to get people to even make it a phone call, and show interest in, having a coach like me, that's the step, is just, that's too much time. It's too much. I don't want to put the money in investment. It's time. It's the same excuses we all use with everything, right? Like, I don't have time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how you got here, right? And so I think for me, it's talking about it with people like you, who are aligned. It's changing the narrative out there a little bit. A lot of people, especially men, are not ready for this, right? They don't have anyone. They don't talk. This is some of the men I've talked to, like, after a month of it, they're like, I gotta tell you, this was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done. And I love it, and thank you so much. And you get 12 guys talking like that, and talking about family, and talking about the struggles of balance. And it is, I use the word a lot, but it's transformative, right? It just changes the game. And then that can only help you as a leader in your business. That can only help you bring some more heart, and people gravitate towards that. They want to be in a place, they want to be inspired to some extent, and be successful, but they also want to feel valued, and know that they're not working with a robot. They're working with someone who actually cares, right? And once that bridge has been crossed, that's the good stuff, right? So, but yeah, you're right. There's the obstacles. And it's mostly cultural and how we're brought up, and just it's a
Hmm.
mindset shift um, that is hard,
Yeah.
really hard at times.
Yeah, I can imagine. I like what you said though about vulnerability being power. I would think that that would be somewhat attractive to some of the people. It's not that you talk to. It's like you're not losing power. You're not relinquishing power. I'm going to help you grow your power, and I'm going to help you develop your power, in ways that you didn't really think about. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I would say that like the word I'm trying to think of a better word, because it's that's such a loaded word, vulnerability. Like people think they're going to have to
Hmm.
sit here and tell their deepest, darkest secrets. The
Yeah.
reality is this. I mean, this is how it usually starts. Like I basically, one of my first things I say, okay, introduce yourself, but you can't tell anyone what you do or your job title. Oh boy, that's, and it's like I don't, especially for, I mean, especially for men, like we identify and we introduce ourselves and talk. 95% of our introductions is what we do, right? And so to get them to introduce themselves, like, well, are you a father? Yeah. Are you a spiritual person? Yeah. Are you a son? What are you? There's, you start talking about things that they have control over, and they go like, oh wow, that was really hard, but it's sort of an easy entry into vulnerability, right? It's describing yourself without telling us what your title is. But really, I mean, vulnerability is simply, and can be very, very simple on the entry, is, look, man, I'm struggling. I feel like the more I do, the further I get away from, my son or my daughter, or I'm unhealthy. I've gained weight. I can't, I'm just not aligned with. So I'm just struggling with trying to keep my stuff together. And I'm tired of absorbing, right? I use that word. We just absorb, we just grind, we don't complain. And that's why people are really unhealthy, and frankly
Hmm.
dying and
Hmm.
losing their spirit. And so the vulnerability is really just saying, hey, I don't have things figured out and I'm struggling right now. I don't have time for my kids. I'm away too much. I got this. I'm working 70 hours a week, 80 hours a week. I'm traveling too much. I've gained
Hmm.
30 pounds. Like that's, and then you start talking like in a group of people, they go like, yeah, me too.
Hmm.
And so vulnerability is not talking about your childhood when you were 7, right? We'll get there. Like, don't get me wrong, we'll get there over time, but it's just the relief and the release I see, especially in men, when they just go, I'm struggling, man. I'm just
Hmm.
grinding. Yeah, I'm struggling. That one sentence is completely liberating for the other people who are there hearing it.
Interesting, especially where you say, just, tell me who you are. I bet a lot of people forget who they are.
Mm,
I'm the CEO of this, or I'm the division head of this, or I'm the department, I'm the VP of the, they forget I'm a tennis player. I like to throw snowballs, I like to play with my kids, I like to golf. I like to, they probably just really have forgotten. I
yeah,
think a lot of us get so wrapped up in other things that we really forget who we are, So, yeah, it's kind of nice to think about that. As you were saying that, I was thinking about that. Like, okay, if
right.
I were asked that question, what would I say? So,
Well, and
you
especially
know.
for mothers, I think, we have 3 boys, and it's, my wife, and I know now she has people she can lean on. There just happens, I think there's a little bit more openness to support and actually
Mm-hmm.
having these conversations. So I'm certainly not in a space where I'm saying like, hey, this is all about men. I've found it really empowering and just intense at how lonely and isolated men feel. Now, when I think, mothers in the workforce, and they never, how do we navigate that? I mean, my gosh, I'm being just an okay mother. I'm being an okay leader. I'm being okay at this. I think that's that feeling of, I'm working my butt off and I'm just okay at, I'm not great at anything. I'm just okay. And that over time, that narrative that we tell, especially if we keep it to ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
is exhausting. That's what causes depression and anxiety. That story that we tell over and over ourselves, which essentially is, I'm I'm not where I want to be. I'm not good enough. I'm not. And then you get on the internet and social media, and everyone's basically saying the same thing, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just it's a vicious cycle. So I think as a human, I don't care if you're 12, 50, 70, man, woman, it's sharing, sharing that I don't have things figured out. And I think the identity of like, look, I'm an imperfect man or woman, and but I'm growing, right? There's a that's a story that's just completely different, as opposed to I suck. Which is, I'm just, I mean, let's just be honest. That's the language we use internally. Is I'm not good enough. I suck. I'm not doing what I need to be doing, and it's that narrative is the thing that, really is causing that disconnect. So as leaders and people, and being able to be authentic and just speak that out to existence, that's the authenticity that creates, at least the beginning to dissipate that isolation that I think so many of us feel.
Sounds like you're an awesome coach, and I wonder how much of that came from your Division 1 experiences and your Peace Corps experiences. Sounds like you've just had a lot of different experiences with people. And again, we'll use that word authentic, just getting people to their authentic selves. So I would think, especially with being a Division 1 coach, because you've got to get young people. One of the things that I really love about sports coaches who deal with young people is you kind of launch them along with their parents, but you have a part in launching these young people off into life. And so your attentiveness and your interest in them and your ability to connect with them is really, really important. So, it seems like you've carried that a step further into, helping us adults and CEOs, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, it's, young people are dealing with a lot of stuff, and they've grown up where they don't necessarily need adults to give them information. They can get that on touch of a
Mm-hmm.
screen. Um, I think what they need is context and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do when you're 17, 18, 19? You don't have the experiences of, for example, like, everyone on my team has been probably the best player, one of the best players on their team. They've always started, they've always got the accolades, and they come to college, and I have 20 of those young women. Well, I can't play 20 people at once. And so the playing time and the identity, we talk a lot about the identity of, not a starter, right? I mean, many of my players have never had a B before they show up on the campus. They've been A students, 4.5, and they come here and they get a B. And some people really struggle because, well, no, I'm an A student. Their identity is literally tied into being an A student, and
Mm-hmm.
they get a B, and it throws them off their orbit, right? This is the identity piece. And we talk a lot about that early on. We go on a team retreat. I get vulnerable. I speak my truth. I'm pretty authentic with them in terms of my experiences, and the struggle I have sometimes with balancing being away from my kids. And we just, I think, and I hire a staff, and we talk about being real and being raw, and and giving some examples, because for a lot of these young women, they haven't even experienced that. And so I think that gives them, liberates them to be able to speak. And then you get a group of people, young women, 15, 20 people, and they share and they bounce things off. And they're still going to have some struggles, but those shared experiences, we go on a retreat, we went paintball, we went play paintball this year, we've done horseback riding, we've gone, those shared experiences, and sometimes, a little bit nerve-wracking experiences, a little uncomfortable experiences, shared builds that trust. And then, we'll do all sorts of things. We do a lot of meditation, we do journaling, mindful work, to help them, at least give them an introduction to, before they go into a test and they're nervous, how do you slow your heart rate down? How do you not go to
Mm.
the worst case scenarios all the time? Oh my God, I'm gonna fail. Like at night when they're replaying a match or they're replaying a conversation they had, how can we use, journaling and mindful breathing and these things to sort of slow, because what happens is there's not enough counselors in the world, and I have my master's in social work, so I'm a firm believer in counseling and mental health. There's not enough counselors in the world to cover what's going on, not only on campuses but around the country. And so in conjunction with seeing counselors and talking to someone, and I think, how do we create ownership within ourselves as humans? And to me, meditation, mindfulness, being aware of our thoughts, trying to get off and slow down the film, that film, or pull off the side of the road, to use my traffic driving traffic without any brakes scenario. Like you gotta figure out a way to pull off the road, slow things down, because if you don't slow them down and catch it, that's how you get anxiety and that depression, and it just snowballs. And so um, a lot of it comes down to being vulnerable, talking about these things, being real, having the conversations, but then also giving tools. And to me, meditation and writing and journaling and speaking together are the way. And I'm sure there's other
Mm-hmm.
ways that people do it, but getting it on paper and writing and being aware of your thoughts through meditation and breathing, to me, not just for young people but for CEOs, we always start every session with slowing things down and mind, and just some really intentional breathing, mindfulness work, journaling. These are things that are uncomfortable at first, but once they get going, it becomes a habit. Life changing.
Life changing. Yeah, that's definitely some advice I could take, Geoff. The slowing down, and just because when my eyes pop open, my feet hit the floor, and my mind is going, and it's like pow, pow. It's just like one thing after the other, because I'm thinking about what I want to do while I'm doing something. While I'm doing something, I'm actually thinking about my next step. I'm I'm just like, go, 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 like that. And I need to learn to, and I've been conscious of that, especially lately. I've said, okay, no, just, go, just chill, and just, have a cup of tea, and just, relax, and maybe watch a little morning TV or something, but even while I'm doing that, I still have to, be conscious of, you're not supposed to be thinking about the business. You're supposed to be watching, enjoying this show, are you
Yeah.
supposed to be? So, I work at it, because I know that is a problem in my own personality, but it's that drive, and it's that push, and that go-getter mentality that allowed me to start my business,
Mm-hmm.
and allows me to, move in the method that I do. But it doesn't need to be 100% all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes I could just,
Well,
yeah, slow it down.
yeah. Can I coach you for a second?
Please.
So yeah. So first of all, you're Beverly. You're successful because of that, right? You're successful because of that drive. And so I think, and this is the same with CEOs. I mean, Division I athletes, coaches, and so I think the first thing is to embrace that and love that. I know, and I know we do. The thing that in that conversation you said a couple times, you said, I know that's why I've been able to do this and build my own business, and I'm like, no, get rid of that word, but, and
Okay.
change it to a word and. So you can say, this is why I've been successful, and I need to find and it would benefit me to find some skills to slow things down, right? That, and we tend to throw the word but in there, and I know it's just one word, but uh, I think the word and, both and, right? So you can integrate two things, right? So we always
Mm-hmm.
talk about, you can be angry and grateful, right? You can
Mm.
be sad and motivated, right? What I always tell my players is, you can't complain and be grateful. It's tough to complain and be grateful at the same time. The reality is we have multiple emotions going on all the time. And one of the things, we're so dichotomous in how we want things to be certain ways, right? So yeah, that's why meditation is powerful. It sort of it slows our brain down, but meditation by nature is catching yourself not chilling out. You just catch yourself those thoughts, and that's nature. And the more we practice it, the better we'll get at that. And that's okay, right? And so one of the things I always talk about is, let's try not to be punitive towards ourselves, right? Because we talk about things in such negative terms, even when we think we're saying we're being positive, we're still really tapping into that negative story behind us, is that, you are successful because you are driven, and you're driven, I'm sure, because of your family and your background, and there's events that have happened, and that is a great thing. And there are parts of that aren't so great that we probably need to outgrow, and we need to review those things and go, this is why I'm successful. This is why there's so many positive things. What are the things from that same space that are no longer serving me? And then that's just between ourselves, right? We write those down, we think about them, and we go, okay, so these are some things that no longer serve me, that I've just been sort of on autopilot. Let's look at those things with kindness, compassion, and my favorite word in the whole world, curiosity. Why might that also be the other side of the coin for my motivation and for my drive, right? And have a conversation like you'd have with one of your best friends, as opposed to just, but I need to do this too, right? Or even worse, most of us do. We get pretty mean spirited to ourselves in terms of, why I figured this out. I know this, I should learn this. I should be better than that. Like, these are the things that I know I do. And in talking to CEOs, I think, and just leaders of all types, and hearing you talk, we all do that. So I think using a sense of curiosity, and using the word both, and I can do both, and be able to speak to them in a way that's true. First of all, like, I'm motivated, I'm driven, and I can slow down a little bit. How do I do that? Okay, is that meditation? Is that writing? Is that walking? What is it for me? So it's not a but, it's an and. And so, because I think it takes away from the thing that's really good, which makes you successful, is that you're driven, right? And you're motivated, and you're inspiring, and you're a risk taker, and all those sort of things. And on the other side of that, what are some things that I want to be curious about and look in and maybe re-examine over as I get into as I get into next week, and then you're gonna fail, we're gonna fail, and then you go back and you try not to be punitive, like, what tripped me up this time? Be curious, and then this is life, man. This is what we do. And as leaders, we have the option to impact more people through showing this and being authentic.
I just got an awesome free coaching session. Thank you so much, Geoff. I appreciate that, because I can be, I guess, a little hard on myself. I do work to stop and smell the roses, so to speak. But that's almost something I have to schedule or something. It's just something that I don't automatically go to, but I do know that that's necessary, and I do understand other things that I need to do, like connect with Mother Earth, listen to the birds, just enjoy the sunrise or the sunset, whichever it may be. And I do know that I need to do those things, and I do take steps to commit to those things, but and they kind of I have to work them into my day. I have to work them
Absolutely.
into,
great.
Yeah,
got to keep it sacred. Like, you figure out what's sacred. So if nature, like, the word sacred is, if you don't keep it sacred, it won't happen, because life will happen.
Life will happen.
Awesome.
So I understand that you're just launching Epic Journey 2024. Give us a little brief of that, and tell us what that's like, and how we can connect with that. Where can we find that?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I'm a volleyball coach, so right now it's focused on that group here for the next 2-3 weeks. I'm going to open up to the rest of the world, but really what I want to be doing is bringing in 12 to 15. This one's for men. This particular program is for men. So 12 to 15 men meeting every other week for 6 months. And, we do partner calls. And by the end of the 6 months, this group is always very, very connected because they do what we've just been talking about here for the last 45 minutes. We share, like, hey, what's going on, and it's not all bad stuff. It's awesome stuff too. And so it's a group that I've exactly what we talked about, and getting together on a consistent basis. We do Zoom twice a month for 6 months, and then most of them want to continue and do some other things after that. So some of these are guys who have already been in it. We'll do a retreat. And again, it's a program, right, to just get people leveling up and becoming healthier physically, emotionally, spiritually, and then professionally. So a lot of the people who join these groups, this is gonna be my third one. They range from CEOs to Fortune 500 companies, business owners. I have principals, I have head coaches, ADs, owners of companies, small businesses, and large businesses. So it's an eclectic group of people that all are want to dedicate and just get better and grow. And so I'll send that off to you when I have my last iteration of it, and it's going to start up in February. And for your people, I'll put something that's connected to the people you work with. It'll be a little bit of a discount, so it's $2,500, I believe, for the 6 months. You had talked about people will spend that money easily to go into the gym and hire a trainer or do something else. My mission is to say, look, this, because I've done this too. I've been coached, and it's transformed me, and every person who's been involved in the group. It's really cool to hear how uncomfortable it was at first to say yes, and how grateful they are that they said yes because of how it's impacted their lives. So it's epicjourneyleadership.com is my website. The best thing is just to have people reach out and give me an email or call me and just chat, and I can tell more people about it. So I'll give you that information too. So I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak about it, because it's definitely something I'm passionate about.
Yes, and we'll put all that information in our marketing material so that our listeners, so that my audience can take advantage of that. It sounds like a wonderful program, and anytime we get a chance to connect with others on a real, authentic basis, it's going to be a great thing, because I don't think that we all do enough of that. So I thank you for providing us with such an option, such a program. So this has been really, really eye-opening and inspirational, Geoff. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. And I'm going to post also your LinkedIn and your social media in the marketing materials. But just to recap, epicjourneyleadership.com is where you can find Geoff and learn more about his programs, and how to reach him, and just reach out and maybe chat with him a little bit, to see how you can collaborate and work together. Been a wonderful episode. Thank you so much, Geoff.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, audience, for listening to this episode of Team Building Cultures. If you'd like to hear more on this topic and others about coaching, leading, building strong teams, personal development, just check us out on YouTube. My YouTube page is Strategic HR Consultants, or you can continue to listen to the Team Building Cultures podcast. You can find me on Spotify and on Apple, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Please subscribe, like, review, comment, continue to join me. I really appreciate your support. And thanks again, Geoff, for joining me today. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, take care.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Team Building Cultures. We hope we have delivered helpful and enlightening information to help you create your dream team. Join us next time